That's part of having ADHD too, is thinking that everyone else has it together and you don't. So I really want to point that out. Even though I have improved so much and found effective ways for me to get things done or to focus, that's still an ongoing thing. Sometimes life will throw things at me that like takes me off the rail, and then I have to bring myself back.
Hey everyone, it's your host, Dr. Janice Castro on Latine ADHD podcast. Before we get started, I want to remind y'all that this episode and this podcast is not a replacement for therapy. On today's episode, you will be getting two licensed therapists. Our guest is going to talk about shame. How does shame show up for her as a woman, as a Latina with ADHD? And how does she shift her mindset to help herself? If you have ADHD, you may notice that sometimes because you forgot to do that thing you said you were going to do, or you misplaced that one item and then this other item that you need to be able to get to where you got to go, you get frustrated and upset, and it gets overwhelming, can lead to some shame, that negative self talk, like, why am I so stupid? So, we want to talk about shifting that kind of talk. Chantall Hernandez, a Latina relationship therapist and owner of Generational Mental Wellness Therapy. She works with BIPOC couples and adults to figure out why they keep repeating unhealthy relationship patterns and find new ways to connect with themselves and others. Chantall is passionate about promoting growth and healing in mental and sexual health to impact our generation and those to come. I'm super excited for y'all to hear more about the shame that shows up, how to be able to manage that shame. So let's get into it. A lot of people with ADHD tend to feel shame or self critical talk comes up when they're struggling, especially when they start to compare themselves to other people who don't have ADHD. Can you share a moment when you've felt that way and what's helped you break out of that cycle of shaming or self critical talk?
Thank you for having me. This is so important. It can be misunderstood a lot. This is always an ongoing learning experience for me. Although I've found ways to help figure out how my brain works, it's still like a constant, okay, I have to be more self compassionate. So I don't ever want anyone to think I got it all together, because I don't. That's part of having ADHD too, is thinking that everyone else has it together and you don't. So I really want to point that out. Even though I have improved so much and found effective ways for me to get things done or to focus, that's still an ongoing thing. Sometimes life will throw things at me that's like takes me off the rail, I guess you could say, and then I have to bring myself back. So I want to just start off with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and reviewing and thinking about the things that I struggle with when it comes to my ADHD. For me, it's been a lot of being very, very forgetful and even losing things. People think, well, everybody does that. And that's true. But the severity, that's the big deal. Or that's
Yeah.
where it's like, wait, it's very different. I'm not just losing small little items. I'm losing valuable items. I'm losing items that cost money, but not so easily replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a while where I'm keeping track of all the things that I've even lost in 1 week. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I misplaced some earrings my husband gave me. They're very special to me. I've lost an iWatch, an Apple Pencil, money. Sure, they're material things, but some have sentimental value or a gift. I started to realize that when I would lose things, I would come down so hard on myself. Oh, how could I be so dumb? Why can't I remember where I left it? Why couldn't I have been more careful? And that's where the negative self talk comes to play,
Yeah.
and a lot of the self criticism. So there's a lot of other things like forgetfulness too, but I think the forgetfulness and the losing things were really combined for me. And that was the one that was the thing that triggered me the most. And I'd be
Mm.
really hard on myself. Sometimes I would cry and my husband would be like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm like, it is a big deal, you
Yeah.
know? And those
Yeah.
emotions would come out.
Of
Mhm.
course, of course. Yeah, I appreciate how you point out that When it comes to struggling with negative self talk, forgetting things, or losing items, we recognize that, yes, that happens to everyone and it shows up especially for people with ADHD. Like when you described the forgetfulness or losing belongings easily, we know that's also part of the symptoms in the diagnostic manual because it is such a
Mm-hmm.
common thing for people with ADHD, even though it may happen to a lot of people. And I can speak to it myself as somebody who does not have ADHD. I might lose stuff sometimes or forget things. I've engaged in negative self talk, and
Mm-hmm.
also it's not to the level of severity that it shows up with ADHD. When you brought up that you one time created a list of the things I'm losing during the week, that was for you to visually see something is going on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it made you feel really sad, especially because
Yeah.
these items, maybe you could buy some, but because they're investments
Mm-hmm.
or they have emotional connection, it hits different. And when you bring up the cost of certain items, that does remind me of the ADHD text, how having ADHD has its costs, like when you lose
Yes.
items that are expensive.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that list that I mentioned, right?
Hmm.
I started doing that because my mind is jumbling with all these things that I'm losing, and it feels like I'm out of control.
Mm,
It feels like I'm not keeping track of anything. And so I'm like, well, let me make a list. Like, how many things have I really lost? And or is it just misplaced somewhere? And some of those things I find again after a while, and I'm just like, oh, okay, good. I found my $20, right? Or, I found this. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Those things help me to be more self-compassionate, to be like, look, you got this, right? Like some items may just be misplaced. So let's figure this out and slow it down because
mm,
I'm initially just reacting, I can't find it. I can't find it. And then I spiral from there. And it
mm,
would get so bad that I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like, I think it's here. I have to check. And I
mm,
would get up at 3 in the morning, check, and it's not here. And then I'd go back thinking about every step. I went here, I did this. It has to be here. Now I've worked on that. So I don't really do that anymore. I give myself permission to be like, in the morning, when you wake up, you can go and look for it. And
mm.
these are some places that you might find it. And so
Yeah.
then I would do that. But before it was just like, I have to do it and I have to do it right now just to get me away from this uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. The feelings that you bring up can be
Hmm.
really hard to manage. And
Yeah,
because,
right.
especially if it's waking you up in the middle of the night and there's a fear of like, if I don't do it now, am I going to remember in the morning to do it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep, that's definitely something that has to do with ADHD. If I don't put this back right now, oh, forget it. I'm gonna leave it somewhere and then I'm gonna forget where I put it.
Mm,
If I'm gonna take off my earrings, I have to put them right back in my jewelry box. Or else I say, leave them on. If you're uncomfortable, then you take the walk, go to your jewelry box and put it back. I've had to make those rules for myself.
mhm.
So, that's a little bit of discomfort for me, opposed to this whole emotional experience.
Yeah.
So that's something I've had to weigh and be more compassionate and more strategic even
Yeah.
for myself, which it's a necessity. And sometimes it's so sad that I have to do these things, but
Mm,
this is the way my brain works.
mm,
And I'm like, other people don't have to do this. And I can't compare. This is the way my brain works. This is my system. This is what it is for me. Having that acceptance, there's ways for my brain to work better than it has before.
mm, mhm.
Mhm.
It's so great to hear how in those moments where the comparison starts to creep up, you remind
Mhm.
yourself to practice self compassion because it can be so easy to compare. And you recognizing, like, okay, what am I struggling with the most? And then you develop like a
Mhm.
strategy to help you manage that. And it can be hard when people around you aren't having to do that. And I heard you mention earlier some of the shame that shows up would be labeling yourself like, oh, like I'm
Mhm.
so dumb. And I often hear people with
Yeah.
ADHD labeling themselves as like lazy or dumb. And a lot of it is the messages that people get growing up, especially when they grow up not knowing that they have ADHD.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. When I was younger, this would have been good information for me to have, right? Because I was diagnosed in December of 2023, and I'm
Mm,
a therapist. So I've work with kids who have ADHD, but what we knew about it was how it is for boys. I didn't understand what that looked like for adult women. So learning and now being able to look back and see like, oh my gosh, as a kid, how I would lose things and misplace things. I would lose a whole folder full of everything and I'd have to replace everything and having to deal with those emotions on my own because my mom would get mad. I have to deal with this on my own. It's my fault.
Mm.
But not understanding how did that even happen? I was just here 1 minute, and then the next minute I realized I don't have this item anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, wait, but I just had it in my hand. I don't understand. It was just here. So having to deal with that and look back at how that has affected me throughout the years,
Mhm.
there's a grieving process in that.
Mm.
I wish I would have known more, and that could have saved me a lot of my self-esteem and a
Yeah.
lot more compassion. But I'm here now, and this is what I can do to heal those parts of me as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Not having that diagnosis until December of 2023 as an adult, but you recognize how, as a woman, it gets
Mhm.
overlooked. And I think about how in the BIPOC community, in the Latina community, there's such a stigma with mental health. That's another layer to it. And so it's just
Absolutely.
so many layers to peel
Mhm.
and see the root of what is it that's contributing to forgetting or losing that really important folder for school, and
Right.
how that could shift maybe the way that your mom was talking to you because she didn't know any better, right?
Right.
She was just
Mhm.
trying to make sure that you're doing your best. And
Right.
it's
Yep.
hard because parents get frustrated too. They can't keep it all neat and compassionate 24/7.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's completely understandable. Like, hey, why
Yeah.
are you losing these things? What's happening here? And not
Yeah.
understanding. It's
Uh,
completely true. And when it really became very challenging was when I became a mom.
mm,
There's so many expectations. And I first thought, oh, this is mom brain, which exists, right?
true,
But it
true.
was to the max.
Yeah.
And no, this did not just start when I became a mom. This was before, but now it's exasperated. Now
Mm.
it's to like times 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you get diagnosed with ADHD before or after you became a mom?
After I had my daughter in 2017,
Mm.
my son in 2019.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's great you were able to reflect on how things were changing because the expectations were different. There's so
Yeah.
many things to manage as a mother, and not just
Hmm.
a mother of one, but mother of two.
Yes.
Given what you've shared with us with the negative self talk, shame, feeling sadness starts to creep up when you lose or forget things. What's one mindset shift that's helped you show yourself compassion and let go of shame?
Telling myself, hold on,
Mm.
hold on, hold on. This feels very intense. You're
Yeah.
going to feel things very intensely. And first, work on the emotional regulation part
Mm.
and bring those emotions down and remind myself my head is not in the best space to problem solve when I'm in that emotion. People with ADHD, we have really good problem solving skills, having other ways to do it that maybe others don't think about.
Yeah.
This is where I start to learn about my own strengths. And I'm like, you always figure it out. So you're going to figure it out this time. Remembering those strengths. And when the self criticism starts to stack up, I have to balance it out. And so I'll bring in my strengths, I'll talk it out with those that are safe around me. That be friends, family members, my husband. This is where it's important to have a good support system also to be like, hey, it's okay that you did that. And giving me a little bit of compassion too, to have more compassion for myself.
Yeah.
And when I don't have them around, well, I practice that. Wait a minute, be nicer to yourself. I would even stop saying, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. I stopped saying that.
Hmm.
Even when it was just a joke, when I wasn't
Yeah.
really being hard on myself, I said, I'm not going to talk to myself like that anymore.
Mm.
So I would catch myself even in the moments where I wasn't upset or really emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
I need to change the way I talk to myself overall so that when those intense moments come, it doesn't go from 0 to 100 so fast. Having self compassion throughout, not just in those moments, but throughout, and being kinder to myself. I'm not going to give myself permission to say I'm dumb. I'm not going to give myself permission to criticize the way that I did it. It's really difficult in some moments, but having that reminder, and when I can't do it on my own, That's when I go to my support system or write
Wow.
it out, journal to get that intensity out.
I love that you start off with being self aware of your
Hmm.
emotions are starting to get intense, the thoughts are louder, and then that's when you tell yourself to hold on.
Hmm.
And telling ourselves to hold on is a way of us trying to pause.
Hmm.
Then let's manage these feelings that are really intense. What do you need in that moment? The moment you
Hmm.
decide to pause allows you to make this effective choice,
Yeah.
which is to
Right.
regulate the emotions. When you talk about wanting to regulate it, I hear you could journal. If you can't do that, also think about reaching out to your support system for the self compassion. Not everyone is going to know what you're needing in that moment.
Exactly.
And not
Hmm.
everybody knows what it looks like to
Hmm.
validate.
Oh
So
yeah,
we got to be intentional with who we choose. But
absolutely.
then let's say we call that person up, they're not even there. Then that's where the self compassion comes in.
Yes.
And that is giving yourself permission to talk to yourself like a friend or a loved
Hmm.
one would, and being so intentional that you don't even joke around calling
Yeah.
yourself dumb. And
Hmm.
I appreciate you saying that because when it comes to labeling as therapists, we know that that happens to everybody. And
Yeah.
we know that it can come up more for people with ADHD. And that's why
Hmm.
we're having this conversation,
Right.
right? And so when I heard you say that, you don't say you're dumb anymore, it did remind me when I was growing up, I used to call myself stupid all the
Hmm.
time. So much that I would call other people stupid. I would call everybody stupid. Then when I got into grad school, I was like, oh, look what it does
Hmm.
to our emotions. And then I was
Right.
like,
Right.
maybe that's something I want to eliminate from my vocabulary.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because even if we're joking, it's there. These things can be really difficult for people with ADHD because we can be so impulsive.
Mm,
And one thing I want to say is I've worked myself to where I am now.
yeah.
Before, it was like there's no pause. Say what I want to say, not even think twice about the way I'm talking about myself. I would spit it out. It was so impulsive and the way
Yeah.
that I would act. Oh, I feel these intense feelings. I need to do something. I need to throw this, pace around, or scream. Now you got to stop. You got to stop. And I tell people all the time talk to yourself, say it out loud if you
Yes.
need to. And I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, Chantell, cool it, relax, cálmate. It's okay. No eres mensa. Like you're very smart. This is just something that happened. This is not who you are. Not really taking it as my identity, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
that piece is super important of not taking it as your identity. And when you tell yourself to hold on, wait, and to regulate your emotions, you said you tap into your strengths, reminding
Mm.
yourself you always figure things out. And you know that that's a strength of yours because people with ADHD
Yeah.
are great problem solvers. Problem solving
Hmm.
skills that I have seen and heard because I work with ADHD clients where I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Am I the therapist or are you the therapist?
Yep.
So, yeah, those are such great strategies. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask if you have any offerings to share with us and the way to contact you.
Definitely. I do have Instagram at chantelle.lmft. What's interesting is that I myself, having ADHD, I haven't advertised myself as someone who specializes with ADHD, but somehow clients have found me and gravitated towards me. And then we bond over it, where they're like, you get it. I don't even have to explain it. I'm like, yes. I do love my clients who have ADHD because even down to the smallest, right? Because I have even kids that have ADHD, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I see so much of myself in you as well. And
Mm.
that's always really nice. So, Instagram, I think you have my website link,
Yes, I'll have it
so
in
they
the
can
show
also reach
notes.
out there. I do individual, and I also work with couples, which is very important, especially when some or both have ADHD. That could be very tricky.
Shame and ADHD come up so much, and I feel so grateful we had Chantall Hernandez talk about her experiences as a woman who was late diagnosed with ADHD to give us some personal examples about how it does show up for her. Labeling, she used to call herself dumb, and that negative self talk can really impact how we feel and how we think about ourselves. She talked about wanting to shift her mindset And I love how when she notices her body start to feel more emotional intensity, she tells herself to hold on, pause. That pause leads to a shift in how she talks to herself, because then you heard her tap into that ADHD strength of knowing that I can figure this out. If you want to contact Chantall, you can find her information in the show notes.